Hello everyone and welcome. The first episode of the second season of Magia Record has finally aired. I'm going to give you the lowdown. I'm going to give you a recap on the entire episode and talk about all the stuff that was really great in this episode, maybe some of the stuff that wasn't that great in this episode. I'm going to give you guys the review. Now, this is the second time I made this review. In case you're wondering about why this is the second time, stay for the end of the video. But now let's get right into the review. So we're going to start out this review by, like I said, with the recap. And the episode starts with basically something that we've already seen from the original anime, from the original Magia Madoka anime, where we have the group, well, in this case, it's just Madoka and Homura fighting Patricia. Patricia is like the German way you pronounce it, but Patricia, maybe the English way. And this is the witch that we've seen, I think, in episode 10 in one of the flashbacks, which is the clothesline witch or something like that, which is just like the underbelly of a girl with just like, it's just a bunch of legs, on a skirt. It looks weird. It looks really weird, as witches usually do. But Madoka and Homura are trying to fight him, but it doesn't really work out that well because they're not really that experienced yet. This is one of the earlier timelines in... Okay, I'm going to have to talk about this in the other part of the review, and in case you're new to this, there is going to be a second part of the review where I compare this to the game story. When I compare it to the game story, there will be a lot more in-depth information that I will be able to give about all the stuff that happens here, so I'll have to be sort of surface level right now, but if you stick around for the comparison to the game story, then I'll have a lot more in-depth stuff. So yeah, they fight Patricia and they're having a bad time, doesn't quite work out, and Homura sees this character that we know from season 1 to be Ui, sort of telling her to come to Kamehama, because in Kamehama they can be saved, right? And after the end of the fight, which doesn't go well for them, Sayaka is right there and tells them that they're all shit. And Sayaka tells them that she's been to Kamehama, which we've already seen at the end of the last season, where she's found Mummy, who is currently being a holy mummy, and it's kind of crazy. But she also figured out while visiting that place that they're all going to turn to witches eventually, which is also something that we know from the original Magia Madoka anime. And we get this little scene of all the characters reacting to it, and Sayaka herself as well as Madoka, they're all pretty devastated by those news, but not Homura. Homura's doing pretty fine, because of course Homura already knows that that information, and Sayaka actually joins the club of the Fuck Kyubey club and slices up Kyubey. Is this not the second character that slices up Kyubey? Was it only Homura that ever killed Kyubeis? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, at least now we can definitely say it's not just Homura that kills Kyubeis on site. It's also going to be Sayaka. Good job, Sayaka. Welcome to the team. Now after that, everyone just sort of goes away and is sad for a while, and sort of wallows in the despair of having to bear this burden of having to become a witch at some point, until at the end they all sort of seem to become friends again and work it out by just fighting a witch together, which of course is what you do. Meanwhile, Madoka does the pose that looks, I think, a little bit like a Sailor Moon pose, a little bit like the Lelouch pose, right? And they fight a witch together, and Sayaka gets all the Sakuga. Because here's the thing about the animators of Magia Record. The animators of Magia Record, they really like Sayaka. They also really like Mami, but Mami doesn't really get that much screen time. In fact, she doesn't get any screen time in this episode specifically. But they both like Mami, and they really, really, really like Sayaka. So Sayaka is now the same character that gets the second Sakuga sequence of the entire anime. So can other characters please get something? But here, actually, I'm going to say something. It's actually pretty good that you have a character that is getting Sakuga scenes, that there is a character that the animators are biased towards, because what would be the opposite of that? Imagine if no character was getting any love and attention, if no characters the animators were really in love for, or I don't even know if it's specific to the animators or the director or anyone else who was working on the higher ups, because if no one was getting any focus, then every single scene would probably be really boring, right? But if there's at least one character who the animators really want to give some cool scenes to, then you're probably gonna get some cool scenes, and that's at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We want some cool scenes. So if there's at least one character that people care about, we're gonna get some cool scenes. And in this case, it was Sayaka. Sayaka was the one who got all those crazy scenes, especially the Sakuga, but not even outside of the Sakuga. She was the one who got all the really nice looking, even cinematography. What's the adverb for that? Like the cinematography. good scenes with good cinematography, those were the ones that all went to Sayaka. And we got some good scenes at the end of the fight as well, with the whole time stop shenanigans, with Momoda being kind of a dead weight, because that's just what Momoda is kind of like. Let's get some Homosaya in the middle of that. So yeah, everything pretty simple, pretty straightforward, pretty one note kind of. But here's the thing, we know these characters, we love these characters, so putting them in a very simple situation, a very simple storyline, just showing them like, hey, there's hope. There's hope to be had, which I guess we already knew from the original anime where Madoka was the one preaching hope, but now it's like, hey, there's just hope in general between us as a group of friends. We're now friends holding together, right? And this is something that is more akin to how Magia record is themed in its tones, like keeping together as friends, have like one group of friends that is able to beat all the gods. That's more like what Magia record is about. Something that you didn't really get in the original Puella Magi Madoka Magica, because that really was just every character basically fighting for themselves. You didn't really get team play at all in the original Puella Magi Madoka, which was more fitting for those kinds of themes. But now we have different themes. Now we have the themes of like teamwork. So it makes sense that we have this workout now as teamwork for our old group of friends. Now, after the end of all of this, when they resolve themselves to go to Kamehama to find Mami together and do some cool stuff, we get some scene with Yachio giving the kabedon to one of the Black Feathers, who's probably like, do it harder, daddy. No, who is being really sad about this. And this Black Feather, we know this Black Feather, but if you want to know more about this, you gotta stick around for the second part of the review, where I talk about who this Black Feather is and give you the backstory of this Black Feather, because we know who they are. That's really cool. But she tries to get some more information out of this, which is done way better in here than it is in the game. The game story for this same sequence is so much worse, and I need to tell you guys about this, because you're not gonna be ready just how badly this was done in the game story, but how great this was actually done in the anime, at least so far, because this is just a little teaser, right? This is just a teaser. Hopefully the next episode we're gonna get a lot more of this, hopefully a lot more than this, because I really like that. I love Bloodthirsty Yachio. Don't we all love Bloodthirsty Yachio? And then after that we get this last little scene with Kuroe talking to Nemu, who's all like, oh, I'm mysterious, let's do some stuff about Iroha. Awesome. And the episode just ends. So yeah, that was the episode until now, and this would have been the end of the review, but I promise you guys I'm going to talk about why this is the second time I'm recording this. So here's the thing. When I first originally recorded this review, some of you guys might have seen it already. I was sort of gone for the weekend. I was out of town. I didn't have a phone or a laptop with me because I was meeting friends, right? I was meeting friends for like 2 days straight, like hanging out, drinking booze, like, you know, this sort of stuff right here for like 2 days. It was great, but when I came home last night on Sunday, right? It was Sunday night, and the episode had already been out for like 2 whole days. The episode's already been out for 2 whole days. I was like, ah, shit, I'm so late. Usually I do my review like an hour after the episode airs, and now I'm like 2 days late. And I just fired up the episode. I was really bored, and I still kind of, even I rewatched the episode now. I was still kind of bored, to be honest. But I didn't really like the episode that much because it wasn't Magia record. It just felt like Puella Magi Madoka Magica fanfiction, right? Not in a bad way, but it didn't really feel like anything super original in that sense. So I was kind of bored during watching it, and I looked through some Discord chats, and a lot of other people were also like, hey, man, I didn't like that episode this much. So after me saying that, and after seeing some other people saying that as well, I was like, you know what? Here, I'm going to just make the video, I'm going to make the review, I'm not going to tell people this episode wasn't that great, and I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm just going to move on and be done with it, and go to bed 5 hours after I would usually go to bed, because it was already like so fucking late at the end of the night, and I just wanted to be done with it, which, you know, I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have just slept on it and be like, well, if I'm already 2 days late, why not be 2.5 days late anyway, and make sure the review at least makes sense. So now this is the second time I'm making this review, but even aside from that, I still sort of have a similar opinion of this episode, and I'm gonna have to lay it down. What is my actual opinion of this episode after all that happened? So the main problem that I had after the first season of Magia Record is that a lot of stuff was really rushed. We had 13 episodes for what should have been a lot more than 13 episodes. Like, they tried to cram so much into so few episodes, which of course completely fucked up the pacing. A lot of the characters didn't get enough love and care that they should have gotten. They tried to do the best they could with the time they were given, but really they just needed more time, right? So now I felt like, we were just way behind schedule. We need to have more time to dedicate to making sure the plot of Magia Record can sort of breathe and have some air to breathe, right? But now we have an entire episode that isn't furthering the story in any way, and that just felt really bad. Like, we're already way behind schedule, and now we're throwing an entire episode out of the window, at least in terms of Magia Record's story, because this is not connected to Magia Record's story at all. Like, okay, there are some hints, some allusions, like the theme behind this episode is, of course, as Magia Record theming, is basically the same theming. Ui shows up in some place and talks to Homura about going to Kamihama. They're sort of talking about going to Kamihama, sure, but we're spending an entire episode just on like those 2 and 3 aspects, which maybe didn't need an entire episode, which maybe only needed like 2 or 3 minutes. In the actual game, this is just a prologue, which is like 10 minutes. And the other chapters are all like hours long. So maybe we didn't need to spend this much time, like an entire episode on this, and it kind of felt bad to me. And a lot of other people also felt similar, that we're already way behind schedule. We're gonna get pacing problems. We're gonna get pacing problems again at the rest of the season. People were like, people saw this episode and said, "Oh, I'm so hyped now for season 2. Season 2 is looking so good with this first 2 episode." But the main reason why people didn't like season 1 was because of the pacing. And now that we've thrown an entire episode out the window that doesn't further the plot, we're gonna have pacing problems again. We're still gonna have pacing problems. So I actually dread the rest of the season, knowing that now instead of having 8 episodes for 3 chapters, we're gonna have 7 episodes for 3 chapters. That's not looking good for me. So that's basically the main point that I wanted to make with why I originally wasn't that good about this episode. And secondly, it's just a simple episode. This is a very simple, straightforward episode with not really anything, not even furthering the plot of Magia Record, but even just self-contained within itself. Nothing really much happened. Like, they were sad for a bit and then they weren't. And I've just said everything that happens in this episode in just that one sentence, right? Not really anything much happens. It looked nice. It was nice seeing the old characters again. But did we need an entire episode on this? That's kind of the question I'm asking. Did we need an entire episode on this when we're already this strapped for time? That's basically what I want to leave you guys ask the question. So sorry that the first version of this review was so short, maybe so negative. This review was probably a bit more positive, because I did actually like a lot of the fights, so just like 2 fights. I did really like the way the fights went in this episode. I did like some of the characterization that went on, but I guess also a lot of that is because we already know these characters, we already know what these guys are supposed to be like, so it was a lot easier to just add on to that, unlike with Magia Record characters, with which a lot of people still don't really have a good grasp on, so it's a lot harder to have stories like this be told for Magia Record characters, because we just don't know them that well yet. But yeah, that's what I would leave you guys with. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. Give me, guys, your comments. It was only because of you guys that I realized how bad the first version of this video actually was that drove me to make a second version of this. So thank you guys for giving me your feedback. And I hopefully will see you guys again next time on the second half of this review, where we talk about the juicy details when we compare this to the game story. So see you guys then.